El entorno, the environment.
Li volia preguntar si ja coneix el significat del concepte entorn.
How did Barcelona sources end up voting in the presidential elections of 2010 and 2015 for presidents who openly opposed club legend as a coach and player Johan Cruyff? What caused the 2008 censorship vote against Joan Laporta after the president came into the club in 2003, the season before Joan Laporta was elected president for his first term ahead of Barcelona back in 2003, was the worst season in the last 35 years of the institution, a time of sporting and social crisis, of big divisions, and of a social mass that was increasingly furious towards President by then, Joan Gaspart. In fact, after losing by 3-0 to Sevilla at the Camp Nou on December 15, Barcelona stood on the 13th place of the La Liga table, only 2 points away from relegation after 14 match days. Joan Gaspart was forced to resign by the middle of the season, and elections were not called until the summer. In the meantime, a provisional management board took care of the club and appointed Serbian coach Radomir Antić to substitute Louis van Gaal. The end of the season was not as fatiguing for Barca, who had itself menaced by the relegation ghost. Under Antić, Barca had a good second half of the tournament and ended up on the 6th place to qualify to the UEFA Cup, now Europa League. It was the last time that Barca missed a Champions League spot via the league position regular table. Now let's fast forward to 2008. Barca was no longer that team that faced the relegation ghost or that qualified for the UEFA Cup spots through its 6th place in La Liga, but it was already considered the best team in the world after winning 2 straight league titles in 2005 and 2006, and then the 2006 Champions League in Paris. After conquering Europe, the team spent 2 years without trophies. However, the reaction of the social mass against the presidency could be called a little bit exaggerated. What caused the 2008 censorship vote against Joan Laporta after the president came into the club in 2003 and recovered the finances and the sporting situation of a club that had already fallen from Europe's and Spanish football first order, and in 3 years took the team to win 2 league titles and the Champions League. Besides the outstanding sporting recovery, there was also an important economic recovery. In a short time, Laporta took Barca from 17th to be amongst the top 3 clubs in the world with the highest yearly revenue. A censorship vote is the collection of signatures of members to show their discontent towards the president and the board of directors. This process is composed of 2 steps: the collection of signatures and the referendum. In order for the referendum to take place, a minimum amount of signatures must be reached in 2 weeks. Under the current statutes, for the referendum to take place, at least 16,521 signatures must be collected. If that amount is reached, then a referendum will be called. A qualified majority of the voting in the referendum against the president must be achieved in order for the sources to censor the president, and at least 10% of the social mass need to vote. This means that at least 2/3 of the voters at the referendum must vote against the continuity of the president in order for the president to leave the club. During the censorship vote against Josep Maria Bartomeu back in the fall of 2020, over 20,000 signatures were collected. Concretely, 20,731 signatures, surpassing by over 3,000 the 16,521 minimum required to take the censorship vote into a referendum. Josep Maria Bartomeu, with the fear of becoming the first ever Barça president to be censored by the members, presented his resignation on late October 2020. After winning 2 straight league titles and reaching Spanish and European glory in the 2005-2006 season, the team got into a state of relaxation, and even though the 2006-2007 as well as the 2007 and 2008 seasons marked Barça as clear favorites at the beginning of the campaigns to win everything, the team was not responding and was not performing at the level of its capacity. 2 winningless seasons followed. The requirements for a censorship vote to take the collection of signatures into a referendum back in the summer of 2008 was of around 5,000 signatures, roughly the third part of what was required 12 years later. In the summer of 2008, Sarsi Oriol Giroud led a collection of signatures against President Joan Laporta after 2 trophyless seasons. That censorship vote collected over 9,000 signatures, taking in this way a referendum against the old board of directors led by Joan Laporta back in 2008. Thankfully for Barça, the censorship vote did not go through. However, the referendum saw a 60% of the vote against the president, staying 6% away from the qualified majority. If that censorship vote in 2008 against Laporta would have gone through, we could have missed Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, the best football team of all time.
No va superar els mínims establerts, però va provocar la dimissió d'una part de la Junta Laporta. Va donar el tret de sortida a la precampanya electoral de les eleccions de 2010.
What cost 60% of the votes against the president in 2008 and made Barcelona almost miss out on Pep Guardiola and on the greatest footballing generation that we've ever seen. We've got to remember that the social crisis derived from Johan Cruyff's destitution back in 1996 led to a faithful campaign against former President Josep Lluís Núñez that took him over in 2000 and forced Núñez to resign, taking presidential elections to Can Barça in the year 2000, and Joan Gaspart was elected. What followed after Gaspart's election was probably the worst institutional, social, and sporting crisis that the club has been emerging over the last 35 years. What is this environment? What is this battle that makes the seat and the battle for the presidential seat at Barcelona so faithful? Different from Real Madrid, where Florentino Perez runs the club on a more autocratic way. What are the similitudes between the democratic spirit of FC Barcelona and Catalonian society? Let's trace ourselves back to the 1991-92 season, before the Summer Olympics took place in Barcelona, and the year that the Dream Team commanded by Johan Cruyff won its second straight league title and its first European Cup. That same competition that the following year adopted the name of UEFA Champions League. On the first day of April of 1992, Barça traveled to Prague for match week 5 of the European Cup group stage. Back in the day, the last 8 remaining teams of the European Cup were divided into 2 groups, and the 2 group winners were the ones to dispute the title. a win would certify Barça as the group winners and as one of the finalists for the Wembley final to be disputed the following month. After a 1-0 loss in Prague against Sparta Prague, Barcelona manager Johan Cruyff attended a post-match press conference to define Blaugrana terminology describing the environment surrounding the club. There is an environment which influences the club, and if that will not be the case, Barcelona will win many more trophies. Why has the system failed? Why haven't the players been able to respond more? Why hasn't the ball gotten into the back of the net? The environment influences my men. If things don't get fixed, we are going to end badly. How could you possibly explain that people in the Blaugrana environment around the fandom went so crazy and exposed such a harsh criticism after losing a match against Arsenal in preseason, one of those matches disputed in the United States during the summer as part of the Blaugrana tour, and of course as any tour that the European teams would make? What was that anti-Xavi environment created around the Blaugrana world just a few months after winning the league after 3 seasons without winning it, and the first league of the post-Messi era, scoring 88 points in the 2023 season after picking Barça 9th on November of 2021, and in the span of the same season taking Barça to finish at the second place of the table, and the following year win the Spanish Super Cup as well as the first league title of the post-Messi era.
Ja som campions, l'equip guanyador, cridem tots plegats, celebrem el triomf.
What was that strange atmosphere built around Xavi? That is the environment that Johan Cruyff referred about on that match in the Czech Republic, now 32 years ago. The fact of the matter is that between Xavi announced his departure from Barcelona in late January 2024 after a 5-3 home defeat against Villarreal in Montjuic as a measure to improve the atmosphere and the environment around the club, Barcelona won 8 out of its following 10 league matches, besides knocking out Napoli on the Champions League round of 16 and leading the quarter-final round series against PSG by 4-2 on aggregate. Before the red card shown to Ronald Araujo, was the team that bad before Xavi announced that supposed departure? How could a team that had just won La Liga be so horrible as some pretended to argue? How could a few negative results and losing edge against Real Madrid on the race for the league title fire such a chaos where, in order to recover a minimum state of relaxation for the team, the coach had to publicly declare in front of the press that he was leaving the club at the end of the season, and the immediate effect was an improvement in the results and as well as in the atmosphere, with a 10-game unbeaten run in La Liga, winning 8 out of the following 10 games and knocking out Napoli in the Champions League round of 16, as well as being 4-2 up on aggregate against PSG, as long as both teams were with 11 men. Was it simply improvising Andreas Christensen on the center defender midfielder role, or was it that there was less toxicity around the Barcelona environment and those voices who pointed towards the coach had already won the battle to sack Xavi? It seems that the team played way more relaxed during the second semester of Xavi Hernández's last season as Barcelona manager. The news of the coach leaving reduced the stress and anxiety around the team. However, let's go back to the original concept. Let's go back to Johan Cruyff pronouncing the environment in Prague back in 1992. How does that associate with the Barcelona fan having such a negative energy and such a negative attitude towards a living legend such as Xavi Hernández, towards a coach who rescued the team from a miserable ninth position, taking it all the way to being league champions for the first time after Lionel Messi's departure? Receive so little tolerance after picking Barca at the ninth place and taking it to be a league champions in the span of a year and a half. How could a club living legend who went through the process of La Masia and was one of the leaders of the greatest Barcelona we've ever seen, how could that man be even disrespected by many of the own club's fans? How could a Barcelona fan be so easily convinced of having such a negative energy and such a negative attitude towards Xavi Hernández? Let's go back to Johan Cruyff's words in Prague back in April 1992. There is an environment which influences the club, and if that will not be the case, Barcelona will win many more trophies. Why has the system failed? Why haven't the players been able to respond more? Why hasn't the ball gotten into the back of the net? The environment influences my men. Just like Xavi supposedly announcing his departure after the team lost to Villarreal last season, Cruyff was also successful in his press conference after the loss against Sparta Prague in the European Cup group stage because Barcelona won 9 of the 12 remaining games left on that 1991-92 season, including the game to qualify to the final against Benfica at the Camp Nou and posteriorly defeating Sampdoria in the great final at Wembley Stadium in order to win the club's first Champions League. After that press conference in Prague, the team also won its 5 remaining league matches in order to win its second straight league title. The environment had always been around the club since its foundational years, and it was Johan Cruyff who baptized the concept. What composes this environment around Barcelona? What are its political forces, its forces in the press, its forces amongst the economic powers of Catalonia, and how does the central power in Madrid try to control the club? Here in this channel, we are here to explain the environment that surrounds the greatest team on earth, the environment that surrounds FC Barcelona, that environment that makes Robert Lewandowski's foot magically grow bigger than usual.